Ah. Hi, this is Dr. Mead. Sorry, I wasn't at the right slide. Getting ahead of myself, backing up. There we go. Okay, organelle test review by me. Who else? Of course. All right, so I decided to do this one a little bit differently since we've been over so many multiple choice questions by doing practice test and open response. So I wrote a couple new open responses that I thought reviewed some material that was a little bit harder, and then as you probably saw as I went by, just a little labeling practice. So if this is your first time watching one of these, what you should do is pause after I've read the question or explained the question to you, write down your response, and then listen to me explain the answer. So here we go. All right, so first one. All of the organelles in the cell are essential for the life of the organism. If one of the organelles did not exist or had a disease, there would be terrible effects on the life of the cell and ultimately the organism. So A, if there were no lysosomes, what would be the effect of the cell on the cell? And B, explain the consequences if a plant cell did not have a central vacuole. What would happen to the plant and would that affect us? So pause here. Read them again and answer A and B separately as you would on the real test. Okay, so before I show you the answer, I just want to point out that the question is telling you right away that there's definitely an effect. So you don't want to say that it would have no effect because it tells you that there is an effect. And for part B, it has multiple parts to it. What would happen to the plant and how would that affect us since we have a relationship with other living things on the planet? Okay, so for part A, I just put little shorthand comments here. If there are no lysosomes in the cell, then there are no enzymes to break down any large molecules into smaller ones, and there's no way to get rid of old cell parts. And if you remember, we talked about lysosomes also being known as the suicide sac. So if something's gone terribly wrong with a cell or a cell is getting really old, the lysosome can help kill the whole cell by releasing its contents. So if the lysosomes didn't take care of cells that needed to be gotten rid of, that wouldn't be healthy for the organism either. So that's that. For the central vacuole, if you don't remember what the central vacuole does, for a plant, it's the big vacuole right in the middle filled with water. So if there's no water, the obvious thing is, of course, that the plant will wilt and it won't have any supply of water for photosynthesis. And I forgot to write here that what the effect would be on us. So if plants don't have water, they don't do photosynthesis, they don't live. They don't produce carbohydrates for themselves for cell respiration, and then there's no living plants available for us. And we are omnivores. We cannot live on animals alone. We need to have a rich diet of both plants and animals. Okay, open response 2. Various organic molecules are used, transported, and created in cells. And by organic molecules, that's the whole unit we just finished. Carbon compounds, biomolecules, all those words mean the same thing. It means carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, and proteins. Oh, I missed one. I said proteins twice. Lipids, excuse me. So A, explain the role of carbohydrates in cells. B, how does a protein go from where it is made to exit the cell? So this is calling to mind your movies that you made about the cell process. What do cells do? And that's definitely a good thing to know for your test tomorrow. So if you should pause here and answer this question on your own. So I would think back about your cell movie or take out the script and give it a look over before you move on. Okay, so the answer, carbohydrates are used for cellular respiration by the mitochondria or produced by the chloroplasts if it was a plant cell. So in our cell play, remember we had food entering the cell membrane with the assistance of the vacuole, and then the lysosome broke it down, and once it was broken down into its smallest parts, the mitochondria utilized it in order to make energy, and the cells require energy in order to do the rest of the stuff that cells have to do, making proteins, making other carbon compounds, doing mitosis. All right, so part B, proteins are assembled at the ribosomes and then they're transported by the ER. And this was the scenario 2 of your cell movie. If going out of the cell, the Golgi apparatus can sort and package the proteins into vesicles. The cell is going to use a whole bunch of the proteins that it makes, especially the enzymes. As we know, the cell needs a ton of enzymes to do everything. So some of the ribosomes, the proteins that are made there, are going to hang out in the cell. But if they're going to be transported, they're going to be transported by the ER and then packaged up and sent out by vesicles to the cell membrane and then out of the cell. Okay, here's an easy one, and one I could definitely see myself putting on a test. List 3 differences between an animal and a plant cell. Well, this is kind of 2 questions maybe that I should have said here. Like, what are the different organelles and what are the different functions of those organelles? Because, as you'll see in a second, one of them is in both but has a different function. So pause here and write down your answer, and then I'll show you. Okay, so here are the 3. Back up. There we go. So cell wall, obviously. Now there are some fungi and some bacteria with cell walls, but when we're talking about things that differ between plant and animal cells, cell wall is definitely a reasonable thing to say. If you were talking about something between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, it's not a good one to say, since some prokaryotes and some eukaryotes have cell walls. So a plant is which? A prokaryote or a eukaryote? A eukaryote, of course, because prokaryotes are all bacteria. All right, so cell wall, and back to plants. Plant cells have a cell wall surrounding the cell membrane, and just to remind you, it's made of cellulose, which is a sugar. Remember, sugars end in OSE, so it's a carbohydrate. And cell wall gives the plant cell structure. I think it's super important to remember that it's made of cellulose. Okay, chloroplast. This is where the magic happens, where we combine water and carbon dioxide. Water from the roots of the plant, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and then sunlight energy lead to the formation of carbon compounds such as glucose. And then oxygen is given off. I should have included that, but we're going to get into photosynthesis in much more detail soon. And then lastly, the central vacuole. And this is the one I said, because we have vacuoles in animal cells too. But the central vacuole in a plant is very significant because it takes up most of the space in a plant. And it's filled with water because we need that storehouse of water there for photosynthesis, for the plant to stand up, for all the things the plant needs. Sorry, thinking of 2 things at once here. Moving on. All right, this whole picture didn't copy, but if you look online, you can easily find a bunch of these labeling things to practice with. Cells Alive is a great website to play practice games on. So I would pause here and then I will quickly go through what these things are, though it's a little hard to see on my screen the way I have it for doing the video. So pause and then I'll tell you. Okay, so this is, of course, a plant cell. This is the central vacuole filled with water. Here's the nucleus. And this is the nucleolus, where ribosomes are made. Attached to the nuclear membrane is the endoplasmic reticulum, which is covered with some ribosomes in some places, and it's smooth in other places. And this is showing the smooth ER, and this is the rough ER with the ribosomes on it. I'm not sure what AB is pointing to, maybe just cytoplasm I can't see on my screen. This looks like the Golgi apparatus. I always think it looks like a stack of pancakes with a couple bubbles coming off of it. And this and this are chloroplasts. This looks like the mitochondria. And then we have the cell wall here on the outside and the cell membrane just to the inside of that. Okay, some of these other structures are not important for us. So those are the important things in the plant cell. Okay, and here's the animal cell. So pause and then I will tell you what's what. Okay, so here we have again the nucleus. And here you can clearly see the nuclear pores, which some of you pointed out in your videos. And we'll talk more about these. This is how the message from DNA gets out into the rest of the cell to the ribosome. We'll talk about that. This is the nucleolus where ribosomes are made. Here's the endoplasmic reticulum, and you can really see here in this drawing, which is part of why I picked it, that the endoplasmic reticulum is not just this tiny thing stuck to the nucleus. It's part of a whole membrane system that extends out. That's why transport makes sense for the endoplasmic reticulum, because if you wanted to get something from over here to be further out, it makes sense to have this membrane, like a series of tubes to travel through. So it's not like there's all space and cytoplasm in there. There's these membranes that are throughout the cell. And this makes it really easy to see the difference between the endoplasmic reticulum and here, the Golgi apparatus. And here we have the mitochondria. And I guess this is some unicellular thing and it has a flagella on it. And remember that, you know, very, 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 very few cells are actually round or oval at all. And when we start talking about the human body, you'll see that all the cells that make up animals, insects, and plants are all different shapes. And really, animal cells are really never, ever this simple and round. So, but it's a good way to quickly show that. I can't tell in my small screen what this is pointing to here, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a ribosome or a vacuole, so you'll have to decide because I can't tell. On the outside is the cell membrane here. So I promised I would keep it under 12 minutes, but I'm just a little bit over. So I hope this has been helpful. You should definitely take a look at the other things in the review. Study your organelle charts and review prokaryote and eukaryote, and that's all I can think of. Quiz each other. That's the best thing you can do. All right, happy studying. Have a good night.